January 18, 2025. Recording this as I'm sitting here watching the NFL playoffs on TV with UFC 311 being streamed on my laptop. Honestly, this is one of my favorite moods to be in, one of my favorite things to do. Just sitting here, watch sports. And I don't think it's something that'll ever get old, you know? Sports just melt away your worries, and watching your favorite athletes compete, regardless of whether it's like an individual sport or a team sport, it's just one of my favorite things to do. With that said, I'm just going to go through a list of my 5 favorite athletes that I just absolutely love watching, both now and growing up. And these aren't necessarily the best athletes or anything, just my favorite athletes to watch. First on the list, in no particular order, is the Spanish striker Fernando Torres. Obviously, I'm not Spanish or anything, but as a kid, I played soccer, football, and was a big fan of the sport in general. And I remember some of my earliest childhood memories just watching Fernando Torres play for Liverpool, and like the blonde hair flying in the wind as he'd sprint, the dribbling, the connection with Gerrard, the crazy goal versus, I want to say, Bolton, where he cushions the ball off his chest and then volleys it across the goal. When he dismantled Vidic to score against United at Old Trafford, he just totally manhandled him in that 4-1 demolition. And then also on the international stage, I remember when he scored the '08 Euro final winner, where he just, went around Lum, chipped it over Lehman. Awesome goal. And then, and then the other part of Torres is, like he was a world beater, and then he fell off. Like at Chelsea, he wasn't great, but in bits and pieces, there were flashes, and I enjoyed watching that too. I remember sitting in school while the Champions League games would be going on, refreshing my screen to see if he'd been on the score sheet. And the fact that I did that, it just means he's one of my absolute favorites. Next favorite athlete, next one of the favorite athletes I have is Khabib. I was never big into MMA until I was 17, 18. But just watching Khabib, the absolute domination he had, the single-minded determination, focus, and will that he carried, and then, how he approached his training, how he approached his interactions with people, and how he was just a machine. It's in some sports, you root against dominance, but in other sports, for whatever reason, it's like you appreciate dominance. And with Khabib, I always appreciated it. And I'll never forget watching the fight with Edson Barbosa, where it felt like Khabib was just drowning him, just absolutely smashing his fucking face in. And it was just the most terrifying thing to watch. Next athlete on the list is Julio Jones. Always been a big college football junkie. My dad was a big Alabama fan, so I grew up watching Alabama football too. And for the longest time, they were absolutely terrible. But in '08, Nick Saban's second year, freshman comes in, Julio Jones, and the kid was just an absolute stud. Like, I can't describe the feeling of watching an 18-year-old guy be 6'4", 220, and just manhandle people as a freshman. And from there, he dominated in college, watched him all 3 years. I remember a game versus Tennessee where he went off for 221 yards with a broken hand. And then from there, he was drafted to the Falcons, which were my hometown team. And, he's the greatest player in Atlanta Falcons history, arguably. Maybe Matt Ryan has a case. So, yeah, he's like an athlete that I just watched my entire life. Next one is Freddie Freeman, another Atlanta legend, except he played for the Braves. And he was the one where, this was my teenage years, high school years, and he was the one who led Atlanta to, its first championship. MLS doesn't count. And I just remember feeling so happy. And, this is a guy that I listened to on the radio, or I listened to him play on the radio while the commentators would describe it. And then I watched him, countless times on TV. He was just a class citizen, class player, absolutely classy guy. Yeah, don't want to glaze anybody else right now, but let's move on to the next topic. Next topic I have is sports betting. And sports betting is one of my favorite things to do. It's, in general, I'm a risk taker, and I definitely get a thrill when I put down money on sports. But the difference between me and lots of other people is that I have money to lose when I put down money on sports. Lots of other people don't have that, and I think sports betting is just inherently such a dangerous thing to allow in the United States, because American minds don't register that they have finite amount of money. They often go into debt to buy things. They often make rash and impulsive financial decisions. And with sports betting, especially with young men, it's like dialed up to the max. It's they watch these sports, they think they know better. They're couch coaches, and they're like, okay, let me put my money where my mouth is. And the fact that you have such easy, crazy access to it, FanDuel, DraftKings, just through your phone, has made it an unbelievable epidemic for these people. People are just betting nonstop. 95% of sports bettors are losers in terms of like they're not making profit. You can't beat a computer, especially when you don't control the outcome of games. So it's just tough to watch, even though it's an activity that I love partaking in. Last thing is facial blemishes. Lots of people have birthmarks. Some people are fire victims. Some people have autoimmune diseases like vitiligo. And, all of these things create like blemishes on the face. Like me personally, I've had a persistent rash on my left cheek. It's just dark red, looks like AIDS. And whether you want to or not, people can't help but like notice you and then immediately judge you. I'm not sure that it's like a reaction that they control, but I definitely see why, for some people it might be tough walking around and people give you weird looks. For me, it was an adjustment period. I mean, I'm used to it now. People give me weird looks. I smile back at them. And my thing isn't even permanent. But I'm very curious about what it innately is that makes people judge you just based off of, I guess, slight difference on your face or some other visible area. Yeah, curious about that. Don't really have any ideas. I'm not really blaming people because it is to some extent a biological reaction, but just interesting to think about.